What is up, wrestling fans? Happy New Year and welcome to episode number 735 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags podcast of the week. First one of the new year. We are going to be breaking down the news and rumors and scuttlebutt and gossip and TV recap and anything else like that we feel like talking about in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days. I'm your host as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And of course, all of you that are listening are joining us as well. So make sure that you join us in the comment section on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And make sure that you let us know what your opinions are about different things like that. And if you are on YouTube in particular, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. There will be email alerts for any kind of time that we go live for things. I don't currently plan on going live for anything about Wrestle Kingdom, which is the next pay-per-view, but the next one that I know for sure that I would be going live for would be Saturday night's main event coming up a little bit later on this month. Of course, we've got the Royal Rumble stuff. So, over the course of January, maybe we'll end up coming back to that. Maybe we'll end up doing a live watch along for our usual annual Royal Rumble thing or something. I don't know. We haven't figured that out yet. So if you want to take part in all that, it's a great way of doing that. Subscribing and everything like that helps out quite a bit too. And if you want to help out on the monetary side of things, give a little donation our way. You could do that through a couple different methods. Thanks button, join button, Patreon, Redbubble, TeePublic, merchandise, stuff like that. You could also just be chatting it up on our Discord, totally free. And, the more people we have in there, the bigger the community is, the better it is. So, consider joining that if you're interested. And in the meantime, we do have hot tags to get around, a whole entire podcast. That's kind of the point. So, I'll be transparent enough to say I've been trying to take advantage of not doing as much of the work recently, of being able to take advantage of the pre-taped episodes. And I'm not particularly looking forward to starting a 3-hour episode of SmackDown tonight because they don't have enough for the roster for a 2-hour episode. And they don't need a third hour by any means, but I am hoping that there's some sort of, new year energy that I can kind of bring that up a little bit, but not much TV recap for us to get into specifically. And, that's perfectly fine. One of the things we can go back and talk about, and I guess say that this is kind of the furthest back story to really mention, is the NXT year-end awards for 2025, because we know that the episode had been recorded ahead of time and all that, but they finally put out the actual winners for all these categories. So the breakdown for that, for anybody that did not check out that episode of NXT, we have, let me bring up my notes just to make sure that I'm not reading the wrong thing here. Best PLE and or show of the year of all the, every option that they had from like Heat Wave to New Year's Evil to Deadline and all that ended up going to Stand and Deliver, which makes sense to me. It's the WrestleMania show. I don't remember too many specifics about all these cards, but it did have the match that they gave the best match of the year to, Obafemi versus Trick Williams versus Javon Evans. That NXT championship match was up against a couple other ones that arguably were just as good, if not better or so. So I get it. Moment of the year went to Tatum Paxley winning the NXT Women's Championship. I'm a little bit surprised about that, to be honest, because I thought that people would vote for maybe the debuts of Blake Monroe or Ricky Saints, maybe Stephanie McCurr being the double champion, could have potentially gotten into the NXT and TNA Brawl side of things, or the Hardy Boys. So that was a little bit up in the air, but good for Tatum. Sol Ruca and Zarya won the tag team of the year. I don't understand that one at all. Dark State became 2-time tag team champions. Fatal Influence had JC Jane win the NXT Women's Championship twice, and Fallon Henley win the NXT Women's North American Championship, or the Speed Championship. And they just seemed way better off than Sol Ruca and Zarya, but I guess it's just personal preference of liking those two better because they are pretty great. The female superstar of the year went to Sol Ruca again. If you really, really like her, then that's why you vote for her. I still think that it probably should have been JC Jane, but I can see that because Sol Ruca did win, hold 2 championships this year. She is ready for the main roster. She's awesome. And Javon Evans won male superstar of the year, which that was my pick, even over Obafemi. Overall, it's not the craziest amount of like this isn't super duper important in the grand scheme of things, but I'm cool with those winners, and congrats to them. I don't really know what else to say about that. For at least it's awards that the fans vote for, and not something that they just manufacture. They haven't said if they're going to do the Slammies this year yet. They'll probably just announce that the week of WrestleMania. But that's one little story out of the way. Let's talk about some other things that are outside of that realm. Mercedes Martinez has said that 2026 is going to be her final year as a full-time wrestler. I don't think I had seen her at all in 2025. I'm going to look her up on Cage Match right now because maybe she was on an episode of Collision that I didn't watch or something. Maybe she was just on ROH and I never watch ROH. But I don't remember.
I don't believe she wrestled any time in AEW this year. And she might have wrestled in Ring of Honor. I haven't been watching as closely. But I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't wrestle at all for AEW or Ring of Honor this year.
It's not looking like it. She had wrestled about 13. It's like 13 matches. Yeah. And it's VIP, Queen's Gambit, POW 37, Point of Crisis, Femme Fatale's La Dernière show in Canada, Shine, WWC, and HPW. I've never even heard of most of these, let alone wouldn't have been watching them. Not a single match for AEW or ROH then. I'm thinking she might not. I'm now scrolling down enough. Did she even wrestle for them in 2024? Oh, she has one match on Ring of Honor in April of 2024 is the most recent, where she teamed with Ty Valkyrie and Diamante against Abaddon, Lady Frost, and Layla Hirsch. So that goes to show you how long ago it was when two of the people are not in the company anymore. And she has a couple more matches from the 2024. But yeah, 4 matches, it seems, for the entirety, or 5 matches for the entirety of... No, 4. Yeah. 4 matches in ROH at the beginning of the year of 2024, and that's it. So I don't know if she is still technically in the mix for AEW. She's on the roster page. So either Tony Khan doesn't want to use her or something else is up there. But she's going to be no longer a full-time wrestler. So whether it's the indies or it is elsewhere, if you're interested in checking out a Mercedes Martinez match, do it while you can in 2026.
I have a feeling that she'll probably just turn up in some of the big women's promotions for a one-off match, the ones she's done in the past, like maybe Pro Wrestling Eve and Shine and things like that, between now and the end of her career, end of her full-time career, should I say, because the way she's worded it sounds like it's retirement that's not a full-blown retirement.
I get the feeling that that's pretty much, I'm slowing down and I will take a match here and there to pay the bills, sort of a thing. But yeah, I don't know. At the very least, Madison Rayne has said that she is fully done in the ring, which I thought actually had happened prior to this. You had mentioned that she had also done that when we were trying to plan out our hot tag stories and stuff. And I couldn't remember if she had even wrestled at all in a long while. But I guess she did have some matches in ROH over this year. She was on an episode in 2 episodes in December. So she didn't wrestle any other time recently than that. There's she teamed with Deonna Purrazzo against Billy Starks and Diamante in her last match. But before that, she had a couple other little things here and there, beating Danny Moe on an episode in, was it August or whatever of 2023. So she's only been wrestling sporadically for the past couple of years anyway. And it seems like she's mostly just wrestled on Dark and ROH. So I don't know what her, do you know what her position is in AEW?
She's a coach.
Oh. because I know that she had done some like panel things, but I hadn't seen really like any stories about her or anything. I was like, she's there somewhere, but I guess that makes sense. Producer, coach role. I don't know if I would necessarily have been like, let me make sure that I get Madison Rayne for that position, but they must see something in her in that position. So I guess she's going to stick around doing that.
Yeah, there's no like indication of that coming to an end. So yeah, she just won't be actually wrestling in the ring anymore, which I think is fine. Like she's been doing it for like 20 years at this point. So,
Yeah.
so it seems like a fitting time to end and focus on the backstage role that she has now with the company.
Yeah, she's 39 and she started, Ohio Championship Wrestling in 2005. Yeah, so for 20 years being out there doing this kind of stuff and being almost 40. Yeah, enjoy retirement. It's good that she's like, oh, this is the best type of retirement for me too, because not everybody gets a chance to like actually feel okay with their retirement. She seems like she is, so good for her on that front. I'm assuming that we're going to get quite a bit more retirement news this year with plenty different other people, but some of that stuff hasn't been confirmed. It's just been speculated on. Like, we know that there's the whole thing about Jericho potentially retiring, and then there's the whole thing with AJ Styles. We don't know when that necessarily is going to be like fully, going into effect or anything. There's been all those plenty of stories of Brock Lesnar retiring at the Minnesota SummerSlam. I don't know. I think that we're in a position now where so many people are so much past their prime. Not to be like rude about it, but like, you can't do this forever. And we're going to start seeing that ramp up quite a bit. So, the one generation moves on, the other generation steps up, and we've been seeing that too. Makes sense. Speaking of a new generation type of guy, somebody who should have a very long career, Dominik Mysterio has been confirmed to have a shoulder injury, and he is supposedly going to be out for about 3 to 4 weeks or so. So not something that he is going to need surgery for, but something that's going to put him on the shelf for at least a little bit of time. And that's good to hear that he's not going to need the surgery for, because then 3 to 4 weeks isn't all that bad. He can be back for the Royal Rumble potentially. He can continue to do whatever it is that he's doing with Rey Mysterio, whether that's like a AAA thing that they're setting up or maybe something else. But Dom's out for a little bit, and I would rather him stick around and be a character on the show. But if they're feeling like it'd be better to keep him out of the mix for that, let the guy heal up.
Yeah, I mean, well, if he's hurt, then I wouldn't want him just wrestling anymore. Until he isn't hurt and risk aggravating a more serious injury. I guess it means that if he's only out for that amount of time, it would hamper his ability to remain Intercontinental Champion. I would like to see them probably do something in the meantime of like finding out who his challenger would be, or his next challenger would be, but whether that's for both for the Intercontinental and the AAA Championship, just so it makes it seem like the title's just not being totally forgotten because he's out of action for a little while.
Yeah, like that's, Stone Cold Steve Austin's the best example for it. Just because you're injured doesn't mean that you aren't necessarily still able to be a part of the show. But if him traveling is going to make that worse, then keep him out, do the whole thing with, the most important story going on right now with the Judgment Day is between Liv and Roxanne and Raquel Rodriguez. Whether, Finn Balor and JD McDonough are there to do anything. Dominik Mysterio, same sort of situation. They don't need to necessarily have them on the show for any particular reason. Then go ahead and, keep them out, and people will go nuts when they come back. Hopefully he comes back right at least enough in time for the Royal Rumble. But 3 to 4 weeks, that might put him a little bit past that. I guess we should just switch to this topic. I'm just kind of bouncing around a little bit here, but the setup of everything with the pay-per-views, we switched over to a new year. That switched up a bunch of different things for the contracts of everything. So anybody that had been checking out old pay-per-view content on Peacock, where it was for the past bunch of years, now you got to go to Netflix for, at least a portion of those, if not, potentially everything might eventually come to there. But they released a bunch of different other things that are over there that have been, part of baked in, already. Like they have that for the international audiences that don't do the whole Peacock thing. But I guess they're not necessarily doing everything. The announcement was, Happy New Year, wrestling fans. Netflix is ringing in 2026 with a massive expansion of its WWE archive library. Not really, if you already have it, but okay. You're going to advertise it that way anyway. Following the arrival of Raw last year, the streamer has just unlocked the vault on decades of pay-per-view history and premium live events. So one report that I'm saying here says that even things like This Tuesday in Texas and whatnot, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, etc. There's not everything on there. And that's a problem because everything should be available to see. But between the YouTube vault stuff and then the stuff that's on like ESPN now with the new pay-per-views and all, it seems like we're just going to get more and more stuff on Netflix unless they end up coming to some other kind of deal. So that's easy. Keep everything in one spot. And most people tend to have the Netflix subscriptions and stuff anyway. So I like that. I would rather them have everything on Netflix and not have to have anything with ESPN or elsewhere. It'd be much easier. You guys have it easy over in the UK and all that. You just get Netflix and you're good.
Yeah.
I know you're not watching it for that, but you used to be.
Speaking of which, I cancelled my Netflix subscription a couple of days ago. So so I won't be getting anything from that in the meantime.
Any particular reason why you cancel it?
I don't watch anything on there.
Yeah.
Just don't watch it. Like it just became, I've just got this for the sake of having it. Like nothing they've got on it is worth my time or like particularly interests me. So, but it would make sense to have all the stuff on there. I mean, it's never going to return back to the days of the full blown WWE network where everything was available. Like there was just the complete like universal library of like TV and all this other stuff, because fundamentally Netflix is not going to be interested, or ESPN isn't going to be interested in that stuff, because that they've got a more diverse range of content that they need to. This should be in the whole remit of the WWE archive on there. It's just there's no point unless they
realistically,
create like
good.
I was going to say, unless they create a whole subsect for WWE, but I don't think the audience is prominent enough to make that worthwhile.
See, I just assume that the audience for it is so low that there really isn't that much of a trade-off. Like the amount of people that are going to be, in particular, now, I'm not tapped into these meetings where I'm seeing all the numbers, everything like that. So maybe there's information that I'm unaware of, but I would assume the methodology behind streaming services is basically 2 points at this stage. You're either invested in building your brand because you want to sell it to somebody, like you're just hoarding assets to sell it later, or you're trying to get people to subscribe specifically and you're trying to bring them in as subscribers because you want, and to retain them as subscribers because you want that content to specifically draw them in. And the amount of money that you pay for something to be hosted on the platform has to be offset by the amount of people that are interested in continuing to pay for it. But it also has to be based off of bringing in new people, because you can't just keep being like, I'm just going to pay more and more and more money to keep the same amount of people, as then you're just dipping into your profits. And with something like Raw on Netflix, I think anybody who's willing to pay for the WWE side of things probably is already signed up for Netflix. And there's people like myself who I have my Netflix account prior to any of the WWE stuff. the fact that they moved Raw over to there was just like, okay, well, I already have Netflix, so yeah, I switch it over to Netflix. And that is one of the main reasons why I haven't canceled Netflix yet, is because I do still watch some other things on there, and then they happen to have Monday Night Raw. But it wouldn't have been a difference maker for me. If I would have been on the fence about this, or if I would be strictly like, oh, I don't have the money for it. If they're like, hey, you can find old AWA shows, I'd be like, well, neat, but I don't want to pay for it. I can't imagine that there's thousands of people, let alone millions of people, that are like, the thing that's stopping me from paying for the Netflix subscription is they don't have old WCW events. Downside to that is that means that our finance tables are a little bit harder when they don't have those things up, because we've been able to find everything on Peacock and then everything that's on Netflix and all. But in the future, if we can't find something for a finance table, we'll figure out some way to do it. There's people that have uploaded things online. There's torrents and stuff. And, you know, my philosophy has always been, you can't take a product away in that fashion and then be like, oh, there's no, like for a video game, for instance, you can't buy the video game anywhere. It's not downloadable. You can't find it. Okay, well, then what are you going to do? They're not losing any money from you stealing, quote unquote, stealing something by having something online that you can't get. So keep that in mind, everybody, when it comes to if you want to check out some of that content and you're logging on Peacock, you got to go on Netflix for some of that now. And some of the stuff you might have to find elsewhere on YouTube or, you know, whatever. But WWE does have this Netflix little partnership going on with Stranger Things right now. And I am fully in the cynical point of view of this isn't going to be anything at all. They are advertising that there's a crossover between Stranger Things and Raw coming up this Monday. The finale's already aired. I am not going to spoil anything about the finale for anybody that is, you know, they haven't watched it yet. I will say, though, I liked the Stranger Things finale. I thought that this was a good season. Not the best season, but I thought it was a good season, and I don't understand most of the criticism behind it. I put out something on my own personal Facebook about it, just for, you know, purposes of that. But if you want to know more about my Stranger Things theories and, you know, finale thoughts and something like that, let me know. I will drop them either in the comments below or maybe do some kind of extra little thing for Fanboys Anonymous or something, or I'll just tweet more about it. I don't know. Maybe Discord. Yeah, that'd be a good spot for us to chat it up about that. But I don't think that this whole partnership about the Upside Down and, you know, all these other things with Stranger Things, they got these posters with Bron Breakker and CM Punk. They're not going to have like effects going on during that match. It's an important match. They'll probably, if anything, they'll have some backstage segment that's just involving the Alpha Academy or whatever, being like, you know, Otis will pop up and be like, hey, Stranger Things, and that's about it. So I don't anticipate that being anything all that worthwhile. NXT, we already talked about with that front. I guess we can preview tonight's SmackDown. We'll talk a little bit about New Year's Smash as well. Tonight's SmackDown is supposed to have Julia challenging Chelsea Green for the Women's United States Championship. I'm hoping that they don't switch that title, because they proved that they don't know what to do with Julia with that championship. I think there's a chance that they're going to do that just for the sake of being like, it's a new year, and then we have a title change, blah. Or do you think it's staying on Chelsea?
Well, there's always a chance. Like, it's not that they actually care about that title, so they could just put it on Julia if they want to. Yeah, I'd say like it's a title that has little to no relevance, so they can do whatever they want with it, really.
And they've proven that just because it doesn't make any sense doesn't mean that they won't do it. So
well, it's like, I mean, it's not the case like it wouldn't make sense. It's like, well, it would make sense in the sense of, oh, it's a title match and Julia is more than capable of beating Chelsea Green, so she could win the title. In just like a non-kayfabe perspective. But it's a case of, it's not like Chelsea Green's doing anything great with that title. She's just a more entertaining character.
Yeah, and the way they put the belts on those characters that they actually want to write for, they do more with the championships. Like, realistically, the U.S. title for the women's division was a non-factor in 2025 because they started the year off with Chelsea and they did the whole thing with Zelina. It was a really half-assed story that they only sort of like over like a 6-week period or something. Maybe they had like 2 segments, and that was this whole thing of like Zelina just sort of being like, I want a title match week after week or whatever leading up to that too. They put the belt on Zelina. They didn't do anything with her. Then it was, I want a match with Julia and like 4 weeks worth of, we'll figure out when we're going to do that. They half-assed that whole thing with Julia afterward too. They went back around to Chelsea, and I mean, the likelihood that if they put it back on Julia that they're going to somehow figure out what they didn't know before is very, very slim. So I'm hoping it just stays on Chelsea. Julia can get shifted around. Maybe she goes to Raw. Maybe she feuds with Stephanie McCurr. Maybe they do something like that. They desperately, desperately need a draft. Not only because they need to shake things up, but it's also, if you're 3 hours now and you didn't have enough content for 2 hours, you got to do it for that whole extra 60 minutes, We got the 8-woman tag going on tonight that ultimately doesn't really matter too much. Rio and Flair and Bliss against Kabuki Warriors, Lash Legend, and Nia Jax. They're just setting up a tag title match for next week and stuff. I'm going to add to here predictions for Raw, so I don't forget about it. We come back around to that. Damian Priest and Aleister Black are going to be in an ambulance match tonight. Cool. Maybe. I don't know. And Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes are going to set up the stipulations for their 3 stages of hell match. So we don't know what those are going to be. I am assuming they're going to follow the track record that they tend to do. I don't remember if this has ever been the case, and you're better at remembering things like this than I am. Do you remember if there's ever been a 3 stages of hell match that didn't involve a cage?
Yes. Angle and Benoit.
Oh, that makes sense if it's those two then.
They had a singles match, a submission match, and then a ladder match to go with that one.
I'm assuming we're going to get basically some form of no DQ, whether it's street fight. It's the most simple thing that they could possibly do. And then, I mean, they might even be like extra lame about it. They might do regular match, then street fight, then cage match, which is the simplest and like most boring option. But they could throw like, maybe part 1 is a street fight, maybe part 2 is like a dog collar match or something. I'm assuming stage 3 is going to be a steel cage, almost no matter what. And
I was just looking through, so they've done they've officially they said they have done 5. The Angle and Benoit one apparently doesn't count as 3 stages of hell because they didn't give it the name 3 stages of hell, even though it was essentially a 2 wins against 1 match. So they've done 5 in history. 3 of them have had steel cages involved in one form or another. So obviously it's Triple H and Austin is the first one from No Way Out 2001. Then you have the Triple H Shawn Michaels one, street fight, steel cage, ladder match. Then it's Randy Orton Triple H, which was a singles match, a falls count anywhere match, and then a stretcher match. And then Ryback against John Cena, which was a lumberjack match, a tables match, and an ambulance match.
And since they're doing an ambulance match tonight on SmackDown, I'm assuming that they're not going to be like, and then in 2 weeks we're doing an ambulance match,
And then the final one, which is basically what you've kind of outlined, the last 3 stages hell match they did was a singles match, street fight, steel cage, which was Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole.
I think it's going to be something like that.
It would make sense. That seems to be the Triple H MO. I mean, that's the exact same layout as Triple H's first one with Austin, and it's the one that he did when he was running NXT, so it would seem logical that they go down that route as well.
It would be kind of funny if they just picked like 3 completely random things that don't actually have any kind of like flow to them. Because like steel cage is the last thing because they like the idea of the steel cage and it like visually looks different. And then when you kick it into gear and it's like, now the cage is coming down, then it's like, oh, now it's super duper serious, whatever. It doesn't really work on me. I've always thought steel cage matches are a little bit like overblown, I would say, overhyped. But it would be kind of funny if they're like, all right, stage 1 is a blindfold match. Stage 2 is, let's see, like a body slam challenge. And stage 3 is, it's another random ass stipulation. Like, stage 3 is an Iron Man match. It suddenly becomes about points or something, British rounds rules or whatever. But we're going to find that out tonight. And, it's going to be 3 hours. So, yay, whatever. Going back a little bit, though, to Monday Night Raw and talk about this past episode that had happened before we get into our predictions for next week. One of the big things that happened going into that was we had some title matches, and Stephanie McMahon retained over Nikki Bella and Raquel Rodriguez. A couple other things happened throughout the night. Nothing really all that important. Gunther beating R-Truth and such. But they ran a vignette for Obafemi, implying that he is going to be on the main roster relatively soon. Which means that he has to drop that NXT championship at some point. And that could be, as soon as New Year's Evil. Technically, I don't think that that's going to be the case by any means. But, hey, if they somehow put that belt on Leon Slater, that would be incredibly surprising to me. I think Obafemi's dropping it at Stand and Deliver, and that they're just going to run some video packages over the next 4 months or so. But Javon was backstage as well, continuing to do stuff with El Grande Americano, and setting up the idea that he and Leon Slater could have another tag title match, yet afterward, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee lost the tag team titles to the Usos. And that goes back to the Chelsea Green thing, where I'm like, all right, well, that makes sense. Styles and Lee had a tag title reign that came out of nowhere, and they never even got a tag team name or anything. They just had matches with some people. So they fulfilled that kind of United States Championship Open Challenge concept for the tag team division, not every week. Basically, they said, put the belts on 2 people that can have good matches. We'll do matches once in a while. And then now that it's WrestleMania season starting to, heat up a little bit with the Royal Rumble and all that, now they're like, yeah, but can we actually put it on people that we care about? And the Usos winning it? Yeah, they'll carry that into Mania.
Yeah, sounds about right. I don't see that they have any other plans set up for either of them, so they might as well hold the tag titles going into it. It's kind of what their best usage is. So, yeah, I'd say I don't know who they would face at WrestleMania right now. They don't seem to have anyone clearly defined set up because, they beat the New Day going into a build-up match to their tag title shot. So it's kind of like a warm-up for them. So it seems like unless they do a big rehash of the New Day and try and actually, do something with them, then it seems that's unlikely. So it'll probably be some team that we have no idea that doesn't exist right now. They'll be thrown together, or probably, as you're probably predicting, maybe Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed, or Bronson Reed and Austin Theory, or some kind of combination of the division.
I could see it potentially being Logan Paul and Austin Theory as the tag team, but I'm leaning more towards I expect it to be Bronson Reed and Austin Theory, and I think Logan Paul gets a singles match. And I don't know who that would be. Maybe they have something lined up for Logan Paul separately or whatever. But I am anticipating Usos go into Mania with the tag titles, and they're up against at least some grouping of 2 people from the division, if not also, like you mentioned, the New Day maybe getting a little bit of a resurgence. Maybe they are making a new tag team out of different people. Maybe they throw the Judgment Day in there and just do some 4-way or 5-way or whatever the hell. But But they're going to care more about it on the Usos than they would if it was on Dragon Lee and AJ Styles. And that frees up Styles to do something else too. And Dragon Lee probably just goes back into the fold, unfortunately. Austin Theory is officially in division, if that wasn't fully made clear before that they, flat out said it on this episode. So anybody that thought that there was a twist there isn't. And Trick Williams was also backstage talking to Adam Pearce. So for anybody that was complaining that I didn't put Trick Williams on the SmackDown roster page, I didn't for a reason, because they never said that he was on that. And that goes ahead and proves it. He could go to Raw. He could go to SmackDown. He's currently still on NXT. And we might see him on the next episode of NXT. We might not. Maybe he's just going to pop up on these two shows in the meantime. But next week's episode, like I mentioned, we've got this whole Stranger Things, Raw, whatever thing. Might as well toss out some predictions for that while we're at it, because we got 3 title matches scheduled for this. Maxxine Dupri is defending the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Becky Lynch. And there's a part of me that thinks that Becky Lynch might win it back. I don't think that that's going to happen, but I'm about maybe 60-40 on Maxxine retaining. Not as much as I would be guaranteeing something else. I'm fairly certain Rhea Ripley and Io Sky are not going to win the tag team championships from the Kabuki Warriors. But it all sort of depends, too, on if they plan on continuing the same tag teams in the mix. Because Rhea and Io against Bliss and Flair, or Lash Legend and Nia Jax, or Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. It could just be switch it up on them, and then that way we get them on the cards, too. I'm more confident that a title is changing hands for the women's tag titles than I am for Maxxine and Becky. But I'm not sold on any of those. And the same for Bron Breakker and CM Punk. I feel like they should put the belt on Bron Breakker, but I kind of don't think that they will.
Obviously, as someone who's not watching, I don't have the same level of context, but based on what I would just, you've got to now be thinking at the start of this year, everything has to be geared towards WrestleMania and what's going to be happening on that show. So fundamentally, I think Punk's going to retain, because I just think that they see him as a more, obviously, marquee star holding the title going into a big match at WrestleMania. Again, it will just be one of those things that Bron Breakker comes close, but it's just, it's not his time yet because he hasn't hit his early 40s. So, so we'll just need to wait on that one. I would, the one that I'd be most confident of a title change happening is Becky winning the title. Because fundamentally she's going to wrestle AJ Lee at WrestleMania in a singles match, so you might as well have that for the Intercontinental title. If put it this way, which one of those two is going to feature on the WrestleMania card? It's going to be Becky. It's not going to be Maxxine.
Oh, absolutely not. It's just a matter of if Maxxine is going to lose it to Becky or if she loses it to somebody else before Mania. She's not holding that belt heading into April. Yeah. So it's does she lose it to Roxanne maybe, or Liv, or Becky?
Yeah, so you can add to sort of the drama there involving, throw the Intercontinental title into the Judgment Day picture if you wanted to go down that route instead, and Becky and AJ have enough cachet on their own that they don't need to have a championship involved in it. But it does feel like the one that's the most likely to change hands. But then again, I also think that there's a good chance that Rhea and Io win the tag titles because they're just the two biggest women's wrestlers on Raw, alongside the Care and stuff, to essentially, okay, let's give them the title, and they can just tell a story right now of, okay, it was on Charlotte and Alexa for a little while, and then it's gone to Kabuki Warriors for a little while, then it goes on to Rhea and Io for a little while, and then they'll probably go on to Nia Jax and Lash Legend for a while, and so make that there's no problem whatsoever of having a title that changes hands quite a lot, as long as it's as long as it's interesting viewing. So they could be doing something like that with the women's tag titles, just having it go from one team to another for a couple of months before it settles on someone.
And they could be putting the belts on Rhea Ripley and Io Sky because they don't necessarily have plans for either of them to win the Royal Rumble. And it could just be that gives them something to do. And where's Elimination Chamber this year? Now I'm blanking off the top of my head. I think it's in Chicago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Chicago. Keep in mind, everybody, the Royal Rumble is in Saudi Arabia. Boo. And Saudi has a track record of a couple different things. One being they will try to pay people to show up there, and they will also try to get legends to show up there. And the people who win those Royal Rumble matches are people that they want to push, but it's also that there's an element of it being, who does Saudi want to win? Even though it's going to factor into WrestleMania. So all the women are unfortunately going to have to be wearing the whole full, Power Rangers suit type of gear with the whole jumpsuit thing and all that. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be weird. And I don't think that we're getting either Rhea Ripley or Io Sky winning the Royal Rumble for the women's division. I think that is potentially going to go to either a Becky Lynch or maybe a Liv Morgan, maybe a returning Bianca Belair. I don't know for sure, depending on who they want to do things with Elimination Chamber and stuff. Right now, the current lineup for the pay-per-views, they haven't announced if they're going to do anything else, which they very well could, but it sort of seems like it's going to be, we got Saturday Night's main event, Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, then we get into Mania. And I anticipate the Elimination Chamber in Chicago is going to be, at least one of them is going to be to challenge the champion that hasn't been picked at WrestleMania. Maybe one of them is like, maybe Punk goes into Elimination Chamber holding the title and loses it. Or he just goes on and retains it. Or it could be Punk losing the title at the Raw show here and then winning the Elimination Chamber to get a title shot or something. I don't know. But at the moment, I'm thinking all three titles could change hands on Raw. And all three of them could very well stay the same. But probably one of them is going to change hands just so they have something to talk about. Another thing to talk about when it comes to Saudi Arabia is obviously not for this year, but next year, they're going to get WrestleMania. Boo, again. And Andrew Baydala is being reported for this, about that there's a quote-unquote big offer for The Rock to be having his final match in Saudi Arabia at WrestleMania 43, which suggests to me, at the very least, that if that is true, if that ends up playing out, if he doesn't just back out at the last minute or do the same shit he's done for the past 15 years, I would think we get Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania 43. And we don't get anything with him at all this year. He spends this entire year working on movies and losing weight and gaining weight, or whatever he wants to do when it comes to that front. But I do think that Roman Reigns is probably winning the Royal Rumble this year, and I don't want Roman versus Cody, but kind of seems like they're probably going to go in that direction, unfortunately. I could see Gunther beating CM Punk and Bron Breakker not being champion heading into WrestleMania, and them being like, hey, maybe Seth Rollins will be back in time and we could have a one-on-one match between those two. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like too early to predict a lot of things right now. But yeah, that's like, I can only go by your judgment for that, because I don't neither care nor watch, so have no kind of interest in who's going to end up being paired off with who.
That's my January 2nd prediction, at least. On Monday with Raw, if the titles change hands or whatever, then that's going to be a different story. But for anybody that's going to be like, what's Tony's? We haven't done one to watch yet for this year. I don't know who I'm going to pick for that. But my current prediction is I think Mania this year is unfortunately going to be Bron Breakker versus Seth Rollins, not for the championship. And just like a singles match if Rollins is healthy enough. I think it's going to be Punk versus Gunther winning that championship. And I think it's going to be, unfortunately, Cody versus Roman. And if Braun wins the belt on Monday, I'll have to readjust that quite a bit. But I'm going to say, prediction-wise, I'm going to go Punk retains, Maxxine retains, and the women's tag titles change hands. Let's get into New Year's Smash and get your thoughts as well on World's End, because I did that post show without you, so I want to get your thoughts on what happened at World's End and stuff when we loop that in with all the AEW stuff too. But Dynamite was New Year's Smash, and coming out of that, some pretty important stuff. One of them being MJF won the title.
Yeah, he did. And brought back the Triple B as well on this show as the and already has like a lineup of challengers coming after him. Most notably, out of the ones that came out, obviously knew there was going to be more stuff with Strickland and Page and Joe after the ending of that. But Bandito, of course, has the title shot next week. But also Kenny Omega saying that he wants to challenge for the title and win it one last time. So yeah, so he already has like a lineup of people ready to challenge him for the title. Thought the match at World's End was good, nothing like super special, but like it was good, a good match. But I don't know, I have like an element of hesitancy about this because the last time MJF was world champion was also coincided with the time that AEW started to go off the rails a little bit creatively. So I kind of with 2025 we kind of steered in the right direction. Then start of 2026 with MJF back as the world champion just makes me a little bit uneasy because I think he's obviously a super talented guy, a great worker and great talker, but some of his conceptions and thoughts of professional wrestling don't align with what I want from AEW. They're too WWE.
Yeah. That last time, the whole Adam Cole feud, for instance.
Yeah, it just got too silly. Like, it was going well for a while, but then they just went way too long. His babyface turn just didn't work. As long as he stays as a heel, and it's all leading up to what we would presume to be MJF losing to Will Ospreay at All In Wembley Stadium, then, or however it ends up going, like, I don't think that it's going to be as negative. He just needs to stay what he is because him as a heel is what he's designed to be. He can't be a babyface.
Stay in the lane that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try something different every once in a while, but it didn't. And if they try to go back to the same story, it's probably going to fail again. Yeah. He does have a whole laundry list of different competitors. So they didn't announce when some of those matches are going to be taking place and stuff because it's, they don't need to be like, and he fights Omega this day and this day and this day, like they don't need to do that or anything. But the title situation, Bandito does have the maximum carnage shot, so I fully anticipate Bandito does not win that. Nothing changes on that front. Death Riders are in a weird spot right now because the championship changed hands. The Continental title is now on Jon Moxley, and he cut this promo afterward that some people were really upset about. I think too upset that they needed to be, but I understand some of the points of view of, why was he cutting the promo? Why were they killing the time and doing all that? But he wins the Continental Championship, and they didn't really touch upon the whole Okada aspect of it. Instead, they just had the Death Riders be like, yeah, we're going to keep doing our thing. I think that that's a mistake. And I'm kind of feeling a little bit nervous that this is just, I need to put a belt on Moxley more than anything else, because this was not a step in the right direction storyline-wise, in my mind.
I think it was totally fine. Like, I think that having watched the matches at World's End, the match of the night, well, one of the matches of the night, probably in total, was Moxley and Carl Fletcher. Like, their match was absolutely incredible. I don't think either Okada or Takeshita or Moxley Okada was at the same level as Moxley and Fletcher, just from a pure match standpoint. But they've decided to transition into a story where, like, through the Continental Classic, Moxley's rediscovered a passion and a hunger and an understanding that AEW is what he wanted it to be, which was a place where people who are passionate about professional wrestling go to, and through that is becoming a babyface, which was illustrated by him wrestling and defeating Josh Alexander on the show. And he's going to wrestle, he's going to defend the title, or he's not defend the title, have an eliminator match with Shelton Benjamin on next week's show. So they're now in this weird catch-22 where the rest of the Death Riders are clearly heels, where Moxley is still, they're not showing any real discontent between them right now, but Moxley is clearly behaving and being treated like a babyface, whereas the rest of them are all heels. I mean, they all defeated Tony Storm, Roderick Strong, and Orange Cassidy on this show as well. So I think that will eventually come to a head. Like, that will have the quote unquote fireworks that we're waiting for when Moxley's finally ousted from it, but they're just continuing it for a while. I don't think it either really impacts the Takeshita and Okada story whatsoever, because Okada still has a championship. They're still at loggerheads to each other. I think the fact that Okada's not on the show is just simply due to the fact that he's in Japan promoting the match against Tanahashi. So he couldn't be on the show. So yeah, I don't think that I think that they've decided to like keep the Okada and Takeshita thing like within the Don Callis family like universe and their own ilk, and there's still a title to be won. And we have to see how both of them come out of Wrestle Kingdom and what the reaction to that is and what the fallout from that is. And they're now going to transition on to focusing on Moxley's story and his switch to a babyface, which will lead to which will make him more sympathetic than when the Death Riders finally turn on him. Because to be fair, like if they just turned on him when he had been beaten for a while and then they decided, oh, we're going to kick you out because you're weak, it doesn't make Moxley a babyface on his comeback. Whereas if you actually make Moxley a babyface and then they turn on him, then you will support him more when he comes back from that, or what the repercussions of that would be. So I think they played it pretty well, and promo was totally fine as well. Like at the end of the day, it was the end of a big tournament. The person who wins that tournament should be able to cut a promo at the end, regardless of what they say.
We got the different matches going on with like we got an eliminator match and all that stuff going on there. But we also had the national championship. Ricochet beats Jungle Joe Perry. Not all that surprising, but Luchasaurus has been written off with an injury.
Yeah,
that sucks.
So yeah, it is unfortunate because he's only just recently come back from a long-term timeout on the shelf as well. So, but Jack Perry's been doing well in the singles capacity. He's so much better as an underdog babyface with a bit more of an edge to him from his heel work, but like it just suits him far more than what he was doing as a heel. So I don't know if he'll continue to pursue that title, but there's plenty of stuff that he can get involved in the meantime. I think he's a very, as he showed in the Continental Classic, he's someone that they can rely on to have good matches at the very least.
And we got the big, thing going on throughout this whole episode. The final match of the night main event. Willow Nightingale beats Mercedes Moné, wins the TBS championship back, and finishes off the year with a, big title change.
Yeah, I was surprised that they decided to make this change so quickly, but it's also soon after Mercedes holding other titles. But then again, like even though the plan in many people's eyes would be that Mercedes would like drop loads of these titles, you have to remember that there are other promotions' titles, and they may not want to have Mercedes Moné drop the championship unless she wants to, because it's a case of, well, yeah, because I'm probably going to sell more tickets if I have Mercedes Moné wrestling on my show than if whoever my big local star is. I mean, I assume the idea is that having Mercedes Moné holding a lot of like local or more smaller independent promotions is eventually she'll drop the title to whoever they want to push as their next big women's star, and we'll move on from that. But yeah, they've just decided to tell a story of Mercedes, the Mercedes downfall, her going crazy, her just not being focused, not being just a big drop of form. And so she's fell at World's End in the tag match. She's already lost multiple titles to Alex Windsor and Red Velvet, and now she lost the big title that she has had almost since the beginning of her time in AEW, and lost it to the person that she defeated for it in the first place. Makes Willow Nightingale a double champion. She reunited with Chris Statlander as well. So now we've got this thing with like all three like babyface, all three women's champions in AEW are like a babyface collective now. They're all on the same page with each other. So that's quite interesting. That we've gone from obviously having Mercedes have the title and being a very heel-leaning champion for a lot of the time, to now we've got three babyfaces as the champions. So yeah,
it changes up the dynamic quite a bit.
Yeah, I say I'm not never going to be upset with Willow Nightingale winning titles. Like, she's one of the best they have. So, and yeah, it'd be fun to see her. It would be nice to see her have a full reign with this title, because obviously the previous one was almost done as a setup to Mercedes winning the title, because she only held it for like a month or so before Mercedes won it. So it'd be nice to see her have a long reign with it. It'd be interesting to see how they decide to balance that out with her being a tag champion as well as this. As I say, I always assumed that the tag title reign was not going to be a long-term one, because I thought they'd just go with the underdog babyfaces win the title, not as an equivalent. This is going to sound like disparaging to them, but they kind of strike me as like the Rhino and Heath Slater of winning those titles. It's like, oh, it's that nice, like, fun underdog team that not that anyone didn't expect, but more for Harley Cameron, of course, being like less experienced of the two, or the less capable of the two. But I always thought that they would hold it for maybe a month or two, have a few title defenses, and then would drop it to someone they wanted to have, like, build a division around more long term, whether that's the Sisters of Sin, whether that's Storm and Shirakawa, whether that's Megan Bain and Penelope Ford, whatever route they were on take. I'd say that they're the ones that are more going to be the pillars of that division, rather than Nightingale and Harley Cameron.
And because it could make... Good.
I was going to say, because of this reuniting as well, it seems like more likely in the future it would probably be something like, if Nightingale was to win the titles again in the future, it probably would be with Statlander instead.
I think that actually could be a big factor in the tag title situation going on right now too, because Sisters of Sin did win on World's End, and Tekla is basically going to be challenging Chris Statlander next. So if the way to kind of like mix around a little bit of that Willow and Stat stuff, they could very well be in a situation where it's Harley Cameron, Willow Nightingale, and Chris Statlander teaming up in a 6-woman tag against the 3 members of the Triangle of Madness. And then you've got Willow and Harley against the Sisters of Sin. They could drop those tag titles. And then that puts Willow as, you know, she still has the United States Championship, the TBS Championship. So she doesn't lose momentum. Harley Cameron has only wrestled 20-something matches. So it's not like she's like, okay, well, what do we do with Harley Cameron? She's still, you know, a rookie. And, you know, they gave her the tag team title reign. It doesn't have to be a long one. You don't have to hold that belt for an entire year. So I could see this being Sisters of Sin win those tag titles, and then that puts Statlander in like and is she going to also lose to Tekla scenario?
Yeah.
And I don't think that she will, but, you know, I think that ups the ante for that feud.
No, it's good because it sets up good 6-woman tags between like the Sisters of Sin and Tekla, with them moving forward. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that the Sisters of Sin win the tag titles and they become like the more long-term reign for it, and also makes it like, if you really want to transition Tony Storm into the tag picture more prominently, then having a heel team to go after makes more sense. But yeah, and then it does. I was like, they can't wait until Revolution to do all this, because Revolution's 3 months away, or 2 months away, pretty much. So they need to start doing some things in the meantime. So they're going to need to do it on some special episode of either Dynamite or Collision or something instead, like the Tekla match. They can't stall it for 2 months, I don't think.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, when they announce those things and stuff, we'll have more of an idea a little bit later on when it comes to that. But I think that's as much of a prediction as you could possibly get for like where are they going in the future. I think tag titles probably change hands at some TV show. Maybe it's Maximum Carnage. Maybe it's a regular episode or something. I don't know.
And I think Maximum Carnage might come a bit too soon.
Well, when is Maximum Carnage? It's 14th or something. Oh, is it already?
I thought.
I think it's the 14th.
Okay, maybe it's 40. I still think it might be a little bit too soon to do. But like then again, it's like she's holding another title now, and they've already held the tag titles for a little while now. They've already had a big first defense, so it doesn't really. It wouldn't really matter too much if they were to drop it on that show. I think they could definitely do Tekla versus Statlander. I think they might wait into going into February for that one. You know, spread out some big matches. Have a tag title match maybe on Maximum Carnage, and then wait a week or two to do the women's title match.
Oh, the next thing that we do have coming our way, though, is New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 20. And I still don't know if I'm going to be doing live coverage for it. If I do, you'll see that up on eWrestling News and the Ring Report, not on Smark at Moment, because there's no real fan support for that. And then, hey, let's be honest, I don't want to do 3 things if I could do 2. You know, I of course preface all my New Japan and whatever predictions and stuff with the fact that I don't watch New Japan and that I don't even know who some of these people are. So do not bet based off of my predictions. I am flying by the seat of my pants. And there are 8 matches on this card currently. Maybe they add some more in the meantime, but this is 2 days away, so I don't think that they're necessarily going to. Yeah. And I'm a little bit disappointed that there's not the Rambo that they normally do, because usually when I do watch Wrestle Kingdom, that's one of the more fun things for me, is to just, you know, I like Royal Rumbles. And instead they're doing a Rambo for the never open weight 6-man tag team titles with only one match prior to that on the pre-show being listed, which the Rambo is usually on the pre-show, right?
Yeah. It would typically be. Well, the fact that it's a Rambo means that it is, because now
it's Royal Rumble-esque.
Yeah, it's gonna be a Royal Rumble still.
Yeah, just not as in we don't know if somebody could pop up and do something like, you know.
Well, yeah, it would be a case of like we know all the teams that are announced now. It'll be a case of just whoever's the last man standing, their team wins the titles.
Yeah, Gauntlet more than question mark Royal Rumble scenario.
Well, it's if the Rambo is what I expect it to be, it is going to be a Royal Rumble. It's going to be one man comes out at a time.
I mean, you one man, not even the teams.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance it could go that route. I mean, maybe because like they have like, in my understanding, they play kind of fast and loose with the term Rambo, where it's like in most instances it's battle royal. So the fact they're calling this Rambo makes me sense that it is going to be a battle royal, or it's going to be a Royal Rumble style battle royal. But and then one person at a time, because to be fair, like most of these guys that are teaming up in this match, they don't have like big like like group entrances. Some of them barely team together. So it's like, so it wouldn't be out of the question of them all coming out to their individual entrances. But I say I don't know how they plan on doing it. It might be a gauntlet match. Just we'll see how it goes.
Well, the Rambo has all these different teams going on. Is there anybody that's standing out to you as who you think is going to end up winning?
So I don't think the champions will retain, just based on the number of teams that are involved in it. I think it won't be one of the ones with the bigger names in it. So I don't think it'll be Zack Sabre Jr.'s team. I don't think it will be the ones with Shota Umino and Yu Uemura or Tomohiro Ishii. Usually when I see like a lot of the names listed and stuff like that, my mind immediately just goes, they'll probably give it to House of Torture. So I guess I'll guess that House of Torture wins it with their team of Ren Narita, Sanada, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. But it's the never open weight 6-man tag championship. It's a crapshoot about who wins it.
And I don't have any idea. So most of these names are people that I've never even heard of before. Like, if it's like TMDK, it's like, yeah, I know Zack Sabre Jr., but I don't know anything about Uiwa, or I've never even heard of Harley Jackson, I don't think. Or, I don't know, Oscar of Bullet Club War Dogs or whatever. I guess if I have to make a prediction, I'll go with, let's say TMDK. I don't know. El Phantasmo.
I'll say with 100%. See, that's probably the least likely team to win it.
That would make the most sense if I go with it.
Well, just because like a New Year's Dash, there's a match for the tag titles, and that's the Oscar and Yuto Ice are defending the titles against Zack Sabre Jr. and Rohei Oiwa. So it's unlikely they'll win the 6-man titles if they're battling for the main tag titles the night after.
Phantasmo against Chris Brooks. Never heard of him, for the World Television Championship.
So Chris Brooks is kind of a veteran. It's veteran. He's still quite young though. He's still only 34, but he's been wrestling since 2007, and he is signed with DDT. So that's where Takeshita came through. That's where guys like Omega and Kota Ibushi came through as well. So he's not signed with New Japan, as far as I'm aware. I know he can do work around with other things, but he is signed with DDT Pro Wrestling. So it's interesting that he's been brought in to have the match for the television title. But I think it'll just be he gets a nice little spotlight, gets to wrestle on in the Tokyo Dome, which I assume is like a big thing for his bucket list. But he'll lose to El Phantasmo, and he'll just continue being the champion. Probably just a means of getting Phantasmo on the show more than anything else.
Who do you got between Sayuri and Saya Kamatani for the winner takes all match, Strong and IWGP women's titles?
See, this, I mean, having a really strong opinion on this would the prerequisite would be that New Japan cared about these titles at all, which I don't think they do. I think they just do it because they feel like they need to have a women's title. So either way, I mean, Saya Kamatani is the current ace of Stardom. Like, she's their top star, top heel at this point. But yeah, so it seems but that doesn't necessarily mean that she needs to be holding the IWGP title as well. Maybe it seems it might be a bit too much for her to hold that and then also hold the main title as well for Stardom. So they might just give it to Sayuri, so they still have Saya Kamatani as the top name in Stardom, the top champion of Stardom, and then Sayuri can be holding the IWGP Women's Championship and defending it in other places as well. We know she's popped up in Ring of Honor and AEW on a couple of occasions. She has been working with Stardom, even though she's kind of freelancing at the moment. But yeah, I think that I think if I was to guess, I'd say that Sayuri will probably win, and also the match will go about 6 minutes.
6 minutes?
They always, every single women's title match they do on Wrestle Kingdom goes about 6 minutes. They don't. That's I mean, I'll say the previous one they had last year, Mayu Iwatani versus Azumi went 8 minutes 46. The previous one they had did they have one at WrestleMania? Wrestle Kingdom 18? Doesn't look like it. So they didn't even do a women's title match on that show. And then the previous one, Wrestle Kingdom 17, I think that was the first time they did a title match on it. Went 5 minutes 56. So they don't have a good track record of giving the women a lot of time on this show.
Let's see what we got next. 10-man tag team match. Bullet Club War Dogs against a group of and Shigeru Takagi and Hiromu Takahashi against Andrade, United Empire, and TBA. Any idea who the TBA might end up being?
Nope, I don't know if they're bringing someone into United Empire, and if it was, then it'd probably be someone that wrestles in the UK, which you'd imagine I would have some familiarity with, but there's a lot of good names in the Rev Pro scene. I would like someone like a Luke Jacobs, but I don't know whether he's making the jump over into New Japan and making a more prominent fixture there. I don't think it would be a guy like Michael Oku, who is very prominent in the UK scene, but I don't know whether he hasn't struck me as a guy that would make the jump to New Japan. I thought if he was to go to a big promotion at some point, it probably would be to AEW instead. But But yeah, I'd say I'm only going based on that because the United Empire is usually built up of guys that are either from the UK or like from the Commonwealth, sort of, or made a prominent name in the UK, like the Great Khan. His kind of big run was when he was in the UK on excursion for a couple of years. So yeah, that's all I can really assume. And it basically they have like TBA under United Empire, so I assume that it's going to be someone who's joining the group, but I don't know who they're picking. It is interesting to see Andrade there. Like Andrade has worked for New Japan before as El Sombra, so I think that he or La Sombra, should I say? So it's not like it's kind of his return, but in a different gimmick, no longer masked up like he was prior to that. So yeah, I think it's just like another just little step before he goes back to working for AEW as the intention was beforehand. Yeah, and also the But Couple Dogs, according to at least reports, David Finlay, Gabe Kidd, and Drilla Maloney are all out of contract at the end of January, which isn't either surprising or too like unfamiliar. Like that's like a lot of people's contracts because they usually only go by like a year or 2 year deals, and all contracts pretty much always expire in January for New Japan. So I don't know what they'll do. I mean, I assume that Gabe Kidd will go to AEW just based on what they've done with him in the past year or so. I don't know what will happen with either Drilla Maloney or David Finlay. If it's up to me, and no, because it's like, well, it's two things. One, if someone is willing to offer you a lot of money to go to either AEW or WWE, you probably should take it because your career is short and you should be trying to make as much money as possible while you can. And they've already done stuff in Japan already. Drew Maloney's still very young. He's 28, so he's got like a lot of time on his hands. And David Finlay's 32, so he's not like old by any stretch of the imagination. But it depends on what they're passionate. If they're still passionate about exploring their character and like being big stars in a promotion, then they should probably stay with New Japan. And it might, for Drew Maloney in particular, it'll probably be more of a benefit to him and his long-term development to be part of New Japan rather than just go chase something in. Because I don't think that he would be signed by AEW. He's good but I just don't think that he's prominent enough yet. And he could do good stuff in NXT as well, but I just don't know whether it's the right environment for him. Finlay, he can't. He wouldn't. He doesn't seem like, for me personally, that he'd fit in WWE. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
I mean, his brother's not doing anything super special in NXT. Yeah, Uriah Connors is part of the group of losers of JCU.
Well, maybe he'd like that familial tie would bring him over. I don't think he'd go to AEW either. So, like I say, if I was to predict now, I'd say that both David Finlay and Drilla Maloney stay with New Japan and Gabe Kidd goes to AEW.
I can see that. At the very least, I could see Drilla Maloney staying. Because I think that they probably would have had him on the radar if they would have wanted to pick him up in one of those two companies beforehand.
Potentially, yeah, but it's like he's still young and pretty raw, so I think it might be a good time for him to just stay where he is for the time being. In terms of like the match itself, I think Andrade and United Empire will win because they've got a new guy debuting, so it'll probably be a good idea for that person to pick up the win.
And I think Maloney, if I remember correctly, Maloney was on NXT UK for some stuff.
Yeah, he was, for a little while.
So if they were like super interested in them, he probably would have.
He was in the first tournament for the title.
Yeah, they probably would have signed him back then or something. So, yeah, I mean, there's a 4-way for the number one contender of the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Sho, Kosei Fujita, Desperado, and Ishimori. I don't have the slightest idea who would do anything with that. That's another one of those things where it's like, all right, 4 people that I'm not all that familiar with in the grand scheme of things fighting for a title that I don't know the direction for. So if you want me to toss the thing, I'll just be like, I don't know, Desperado, I guess. But yeah.
Well, the title match will be against Dookie on the next night
New Year's
show.
Dash.
Yeah, New Year's Dash. So that kind of it doesn't rule out Show, but it probably like as close to rules him out because they're in the same faction. So it'd be unlikely that they fight for the title. Taiji Ishimori, potentially, he's more of like he's on the Bullet Club War Dog side. They're kind of sometimes babyfaces, sometimes heels. Vegeta and Desperado make the most sense because they're just pure like baby faces, so they would make the most likelihood. You kind of always in these situations would tend to back Desperado because he's the kind of centerpiece of the junior heavyweight division right now. So yeah, I'd probably end up going with him unless they really want to push or at least give an opportunity to Vegeta instead to at least have this match. So yeah, I would predict Desperado, but Vegeta is the second most likely.
You got Evil against Aaron Wolf for the never openweight title. Don't know anything about Aaron Wolf.
Well, it's his debut. This is going to be the first time we ever see him wrestle. Having seen some of the build up to it and what they've been saying, I think I'm more confident that Wolf is going to win the title. I think you kind of have to a degree because like I think they want to set him up well, and as it's difficult to predict when I have no idea how good of a wrestler he is because no one's seen him wrestle before, or at least not like publicly anyway. So hopefully it's a good match with Evil and like House of Torture involved. It's going to be a shit show in terms of interference and weapons and like distractions and all this stuff. So it's not the best in a way. Like sometimes it could be seen as the best sort of environment because there's less pressure on him to perform because it's going to be a gimmicky match anyway with a lot of bells and whistles attached to it, but it doesn't really paint him in a good light. Even if the match goes as it's intended, it's like, well, we haven't actually really seen you wrestle because this was just a match full of bullshit. But I imagine that he'll win the title.
Are they giving him kind of this is a guy we try to build up for the future, you should really pay attention to him kind of vibe?
They should. I mean, they should be. Like, he's won Olympic gold medals for Japan. Like, and he's he's a big deal, and he says that he's very, very heavily focused on New Japan and wants to bring back bring back, but like he's a very big advocate of like the strong style approach of it. He's saying all the right things, put it that way. So I imagine it's a guy that they really want to push, and he's also someone that could be, if he goes well. Again, it's difficult to predict when you don't know how good he's going to be in the ring. But if he is good in the ring, then he could be a very interesting character for them because he's part Japanese, he's part American, so he can kind of branch over. He's got a Japanese mother and American father, so he could branch over both sides of this divide that they're trying to work on with doing their shows in America, doing shows in Japan, speak both languages. He could be a pretty pivotal character in a company that is really struggling to build new stars. He could be, if this debut goes well and he does pick up momentum, he could be a really big player for them moving forward.
So, I mean, if they're in that kind of point of view, then I could see them being just like, let's put the title on him and, give him a hot start for that,
Yeah, he'll definitely
it's a never open weight title. It's not the main title.
No.
Now, the main title is going to be between the winner takes all match of the global champion Yota Tsuji against the world heavyweight champion Konosuke Takeshita. You said there's something else that happened with Yota Tsuji this week? What was that?
So there's obviously they've been doing the build up towards it, and they've been giving like interviews and stories. So the stuff that Tsuji has been saying in like recent interviews is kind of more interesting. So, and it's not really about Takeshita; it's about AEW. So what he's been saying is, well, I don't want to lose to AEW. I don't like AEW. In all honesty, with the relationship between us the way it is, I'd like us to cut ties with them. And then he says things, and further in the interview, he says, what has being with AEW done with New Japan, really? If it was an even-handed relationship, that's one thing, but it's not. There's certainly a difference in terms of money behind each company, but I don't see that as a reason to be so weak-willed. This is New Japan Pro Wrestling, damn it. And then he talks about how he's a bit upset about how Okada's going to be main eventing instead of a New Japan guy against Tanahashi. But he understands like that Okada's the one that's helped sell the Tokyo Dome out as well as Tanahashi. And obviously, the way that those comments come out, like there's an obvious assumption that it's kayfabe thing, like they're trying to turn this into a New Japan versus AEW thing. But then Five Select came out with a report afterwards saying that wasn't scripted. That interview, that is legitimately how Yota Tsuji feels about the relationship between New Japan and AEW. Or at least he does feel in certain instances that way, and maybe he expanded upon it for the interview to try and add more heat into the match. But he has, like, notably for the last few years, has been very vocal backstage internally about how he wants AEW to New Japan to be separate from AEW. So it adds a little bit of intrigue into this match because obviously he's fighting an AEW guy in Takeshita in terms of guy that spans across 3 different promotions. But if it's one of those things where we'll find out here how much AEW has an influence on New Japan, or whether they care about this sort of thing in particular. Like, because at the end of the day, even if Yota Tsuji is the world champion, it's not like that's going to stop AEW and New Japan working together.
Right.
But it is, but there is got like a bit of a, I don't know, an optics thing about having your top guy in the company being someone who is adamantly saying, fuck this company, we shouldn't be teaming with them, they're treating us like little brothers, just giving them hand-me-downs and taking all of our top stars, like, fuck them.
Yeah, because, I mean, if one comment is like, oh, I wish that we would focus on our own stuff and maybe,
yeah, there's a way you can say it diplomatically.
Yeah, I'm a New Japan person through and through. I'm not as interested in going to AEW as some other people are. Like there's lots of different ways for you to be able to pull that off. For him to be saying comments like that is very much like, do you really want that guy to be a part of that? And I don't think that they would have any kind of like veto power or anything like that.
Oh no, absolutely. Obviously, it's New
that.
Japan. Yeah, it's New Japan's decision. Like, and I think they're totally fine with that. And I don't think they have. They're probably not happy with those sort of comments that Tsuji is making. But it's like they know that he can't influence it. It's not like he can just go. He says, "Oh, he wins the world title," and he comes in to say, "Like, okay, I'm your world champion now. Now, fuck this company off and like, get rid of them and everything." It's like he doesn't have any real power or say in that way. The other thing about Tsuji is like he's so adamant about when he wins this title, he's going to bring back the old version of the IWGP World Championship, and it's like, okay, this guy's quite. I don't know whether he thinks he needs to be this outlandish and this like outspoken about everything because he's trying to get super over and he's trying too hard to like say, oh, we should do this and do that. He's very vocal about how bad New Japan is in certain aspects or how many mistakes they make, which it's weird. You would never see anybody in WWE or even AEW, which has a bit more of a freer atmosphere, certainly not in WWE, saying this sort of stuff. Maybe the only guy that really does it in WWE is Seth Rollins, to an extent.
Yeah.
Like he could sometimes be quite open about not liking the crate he's been given and stuff along those lines, but he always tinges it with the idea that he's WWE through and through. Maybe that's the same with Tsuji. Like Tsuji will openly say about how New Japan makes certain mistakes here and there, or he doesn't like certain choices they make, but he's like a pure New Japan guy and he loves the promotion. So I'd say it's added a bit of dimension to the match itself. The match itself is also like is entirely overshadowed by the main event.
Yeah.
So it really, obviously, it matters because whoever wins it is going to be the world champion going forward. Like Tanahashi's not going to be, he's going to be still with New Japan, but he's not going to be wrestling beyond this show. So it matters who wins this, but it doesn't feel like it matters because no one's really here to see this match.
It's not the main event. Yeah.
No, it's not the big deal. It's not what's drawn the crowd here. So I think that they'll give it to Tsuji just because I think they'll want to keep it on a more conventional New Japan guy, and I think obviously Takeshita has a clear direction in AEW in terms of the stuff with Okada, so I think that they might decide, let's take the world title off of him, unless the plan it does involve Takeshita defending the world title against Okada in the future. But again, it's just I don't know what they're exactly planning on, or who's going to be involved in it, or what sort of dynamics are going on behind the scenes between AEW and New Japan. So right now, I'd predict that Tsuji will win the title.
I am going to say, as somebody who, again, of course, not tapped into this market the way that I would be for the people that they want to be watching the show and stuff, the fact that they're putting the global title on the line too kind of makes me think that they probably do just want to get rid of that belt. And it might be better to have the global champion level up to the world champion and then not have to worry about the Takeshita side of things than for the world champion to then, swallow up the global title and get rid of that or whatever. It seems like it's kind of all over the place when it comes to their championships and stuff. So, maybe it's just whoever is going to win this is going to carry both championships and they're not going to actually like merge or anything. I don't know, but
I don't think they'll merge just because they don't have another secondary title right now.
You don't think that they would just go back to being like, and then later on this year they're going to create I don't know, they did the Intercontinental and they did the United States and now the global. So maybe it's like maybe it's continental. I don't know. Maybe it's a national championship. We could get another national title.
The Galactic Championship.
There you go. Universal title comes back and it's in New Japan instead.
I don't know. Like, there's always a possibility that they go back to one of the old titles, or they just create a new championship to fill that void.
Or maybe they push the never open weight title as the mid-card title.
Potentially. I mean, like,
they do have a TV title.
It's always kind of been like the third tier title. So they could do that. It depends on, again, it puts more pressure on Wolf if that's the case, because like as a guy who's very much a rookie coming into it, to then be essentially your company's second tier champion is a bit more of he can be a bit more hidden away if there's a global champion or an equivalent second tier champion on the promotion. Yeah, but it's very hard to predict because just New Japan is just so weirdly booked these days, and they seem to be flying by the seat of their pants a lot of the time, that it's hard to really say with any certainty what their plan is, whether they are going to merge this or whether it is the case that someone's just going to hold both titles and defend them on from show to show, defend one title every now and again.
And of course, main event, you got retirement match for Hiroshi Tanahashi against Kazuchika Okada. I kind of just assume Okada wins for the typical you lose on your way out thing, but maybe it's different there. And not everybody does follow that exact same pattern either. Yeah.
It's very much, I don't think there's going to be there won't be a hideous reaction if Tanahashi was to lose in the same way like John Cena losing would get that sort of reaction. But I think I think there's still a good chance that Tanahashi wins because there's nothing on the line beyond just this being. We already know that Tanahashi's retiring after this match, so it's not like his career's on the line or anything. So they could decide to just give Tanahashi one final victory against his greatest rival, and they just shake hands afterwards and they show respect to Tanahashi. I mean, the big thing about the show is that this is the only match that matters on the entire card, realistically, just for the night itself. Obviously, other matches matter going forward, but the only match that matters on this show itself is Tanahashi against Okada, and that's why it is a smaller card than usual, and that's why I think a lot of the matches won't be super long as we expect to see on previous Wrestle Kingdom shows, because they're going to have a big ceremony prior to the match starting to celebrate Tanahashi as he comes out and do all that stuff. I've seen reports that guys like Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay are going over to Japan to be part of that ceremony. There's some other people, I assume, Keshta and all the other guys that wrestle on the show will be on it as well. I don't know if there's any other people that they've got lined up to to appear as well, but I imagine they'll have people from across the generations of New Japan there to pay tribute to Tanahashi. And then the match itself will probably be given as much time as they need, or as they want or need. I imagine it will go somewhere in between the 30 to 45 minute range. Because Tanahashi will want to have the best match he possibly can have for his final one, and Okada will carry him as much as possible through that. And yeah, I mean, my prediction is probably Okada will win, because I think Tanahashi is the kind of guy that has that old school mentality of you lose on your final match, and it's not like he's been like winning constantly in his retirement tour anyway. So I think he'll lose to Okada. I think they'll show respect to him afterwards, and then there'll be a big ceremony at the end of it as well, to like him getting to have his final words, a big speech to the crowd. They'll celebrate him, and yeah, I mean, that's going to be the big moment. Is just going to be to see the guy who is, again, it's difficult for someone who doesn't watch New Japan regularly to comprehend, but this is the exact same as Cena leaving WWE. The same equivalent is Tanahashi. Tanahashi has been for the past 20 years or so, has been New Japan Pro Wrestling. So they're losing arguably their biggest star of their golden generation. I mean, I know Okada was like such a big part of that as well, and guys like Omega and Tetsuya Naito, of course, and everyone else. But Tanahashi's been the staple of that entire period of time. Was there when things were just absolutely horrible in New Japan in the mid 2000s, and then was the guy they put all of their eggs behind, and put all of their focus behind, that led them into the golden era that they enjoyed from the throughout the 2010s, really. So yeah, this is going to be a really kind of emotional and big match. It's the one match that I would be buying and watching this show for. The rest of it, I don't really have as much investment or care about, but that I think it would feel almost criminal to not watch this match live.
Well, it starts at what time in the UK?
I believe the entire show would start around about 6, 7-ish in the morning. So this match probably won't kick off until at least like 10-ish in the morning. So I don't know whether I'm gonna like get the show anyway, but it's just a case of whether I watch a lot of the early stuff. It depends on how early I wake up and stuff like that, but I'm definitely going to be around to watch Tanahashi and Okada and see, because I want to see all the people they bring back as well. I want to see like how they treat the whole ceremony of his retirement, because it's such a big deal. Like there's probably won't be a more significant retirement ceremony in New Japan since Inoki retired. So like it's going to be that big of a deal. So yeah, I want to see how it goes and how the match goes, because Tanahashi is broken down, but there's like he always brings it when it matters the most, and I think Okada's the perfect guy to obviously bring it out of him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that at the very least. That could be just for the pure emotion of it alone. It could be an early match of the year contender just because of that.
Well, the results will be out there in whatever fashion that they are, whether I'm doing them live on EWN and TRR, or if I'm not. Let's put it honest. I don't know. It's going to depend on how tired I am, because I think that it starts at like 3 a.m. in the United States, and then that's just right, like the start of it. So it's like it won't get done until like 7 in the morning or so. And I don't know. I mean, the idea about watching a show that I'm not invested in that starts at 3 a.m. seems kind of meh to me. I might tune in midway through. I might check later. I don't know for sure, but at the very least, if it is out there, check that. If not, we'll talk about whatever happens in some fashion or whatever in the hot tags. But let us know what you think about these kind of topics and everything else in the comments sections below on whatever platforms you're listening to us on. And of course, keep in mind all the things we mentioned before. Make sure you show your support on different methods like the link tree that you can find at amangotree.com or anthonymango.com for all of my links. Make sure you're following Callum too.
You can follow me at Weekmeister14 on Twitter and Blue Sky. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances over on Smark Moment, where you can also find the Fantasy League, also at wwefantasyleague.com, where You see how all of our rosters are doing, who's picking up points for our teams as we head towards a big point scoring weekend at the Royal Rumble later in January. So follow all that stuff there.
Check out that Play the Game special that we did before for our main event for this week, too. And stay tuned for the next episode, which is going to be the one to watch for 2026, whenever we record that, some point Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And yeah, that's going to do us in for the first hot tags of the year. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.